There we go. Thank you very much. So we're talking about the five perfections, and so these perfections are the view that we take on in any Vajrayana situation, especially like a teaching of any kind. What we're trying to do is put ourselves in the context of Guru Rinpoche and his retinue at Samye Monastery when he originally gave this teaching, and Yeshe Sogyal, memorized it and then eventually dictated it and then hid it in a terma. And so this situation is recreated every time we connect to the lineage. Every time we go to an empowerment, every time we attend a teaching, every time we study the Dharma, we are trying to enter back into this field. That way we get a direct transmission, empowerment, and download of these teachings instead of just intellectual information, which is secondary. So we talk about what did we cover last time? Did we talk about the perfect? Check my notes here. So we talked about the teacher and all the qualities of Guru Rinpoche, and essentially remembering that Guru Rinpoche is not just a person who lived in, the Swat Valley and then Tibet, etc. That he was actually a full-blown Buddha. He was the emanation of Lord Amitabha and Chenrezig. Their compassion and intensity manifested as Guru Rinpoche, who's this kind of fusion of a yogi and a king, right, as a Dharma king, to bring about the tantric teachings for beings that are difficult to manage, which is us, right? So Shakyamuni, originally the conditions in India for him to teach was only for a certain quality and heavily monastic situation, and as the kind of power of that had begun to wane, Shakyamuni had promised that he would come back in the form of Guru Rinpoche, and that is where this whole Tibetan Buddhist thing started. And that power that we're tapping into, his qualities come from these levels, right? So at the Dharmakaya level, at the subtlest level, we have Amitabha, which is kind of the Padma family, which is magnetizing and which is kind of like great love. Right, it's the subtlest level of conception that you can think of. This naked awareness with a tinge of love, right? That's kind of Amitabha. And then so this field of love is what we're trying to situate ourselves in. And then you have Chenrezig, which is the Sambhogakaya, which is the fusion of the Dharmakaya and the Nirmanakaya. So this pure energetic potency of awakened compassion. That's what Chenrezig is, right? He responds, he sees and feels all the suffering of the six realms continuously, right? His name means all seeing one, right? So he is willing to be with suffering. He doesn't necessarily, like Tara has the like really active aspect of being responsive, right? She has the leg down ready to respond and serve, right? Really bodhisattva activity. Whereas Chenrezig, he really is just abiding in deep, deep presence with pain and suffering. And then he's saying his mantra, which automatically brings benefit and healing. And out of that great compassion and love, Guru Rinpoche manifested. And there's several different biographies that Kongtrul indicates here, and there's many, many, many biographies in existence. This is because Guru Rinpoche appears to us on the basis of our faith and our karmic predilections. So we have everything from a very solid, traditional, ordinary biography like Taranata wrote, and then we have the more terma versions, which really point out the truth of his life. Which the truth of his life is not that he was a person who was born to a person. It's the tantric level that he emanated out of the lotus being the physical representation of what our nature is, this thing that arises out of the swamp of samsara, without being tainted by it whatsoever. So that's what he is. He is that pure wakefulness and love in the midst of our samsaric confusion. He was willing to come into full embodiment so that we could see him, right? Because ordinary people don't have the capacity to perceive Chenrezig or Amitabha. Their conceptual mind blocks that perception. Their confusion and obscurations make it so we can't see it. And so just the same way our present lamas are manifestations of Guru Rinpoche in the same way. coming to us in our lives in a condition and situation we can understand and meet based on our karma. This is why we maintain pure vision. This isn't about putting some kind of layer of purity over something that is not pure. It is recognizing for what it is, recognizing that the impurities are our projections and that the reality of is itself already pure and that it never has been tainted. But we have to have faith in that first, that truth, because we don't experience that or know that immediately. So we go through this process of the different types of faith, right? In the beginning, we have the kind of faith where it's like, we see some evidence that maybe these people have something special, interesting. And so we start to talk to them and receive teachings. And then we start to see in our own life, oh, this is true. And then we start to have glimpses of Chenrezig and Amitabha in a way, right? In our own mind and heart, we begin to have some space open up because of the contact we've made with an Nirmanakaya. And then over time, we become confident in that nature, and that's unshakable or faith that can't be lost because it's faith through direct knowing. So this is the process of faith is also the process of realization. We come to know what we intuit or have a feeling about and build our faith through experience and through trying it out. In just the same way you might have a scientific method that I say that if you put a pot of water in a fire, the water will eventually boil. If you want to know that's true, you're going to have to try it, right? You're going to have to test it out. You have to have some kind of method and then an action to do. And that's what the whole of the Dharma is, are these methods. And we start off trying to work with them to see how they operate in our own lives. And so we have the teacher who's this perfect form that we don't want to think of as something in the past at all. We want to think of this as our lamas, even our Vajra brothers and sisters. The text itself is Guru Rinpoche. His mantra is him. We're trying to get beyond these limitations. Our mind is very, very small and sees things in very limited and dualistic ways. So we want to start to open that up through this tantric vision, and the 5 perfections are the method for doing that. So the next section after teacher is the retinue, and this is the top of page 48. The Lamrim Yeshe Ningpo root text says, invited by Manjushri's incarnation, the Dharma upholding King Trisong Dutsen. The chief cause for this great master and emanation body of the Buddhas to personally visit the land of Tibet was the Tibetan king prophesied by the victorious ones in the root tantra of Manjushri. So King Trisong Dutsen had incredible amount of merit and realization and connections to Guru Rinpoche from his past lives. And so those incredible aspirations and karma came to total fruition as he became reborn as king in Tibet. And then he set about bringing Guru Rinpoche to Tibet. It was through this kind of power and aspirations and karma that Guru Rinpoche was able to visit Tibet at all. So we have to remember that this happens in our lives also. So as we develop merit and aspirations and cultivate that and purification, then lamas and spiritual masters, emanations of Guru Rinpoche will show up in our lives. And if you haven't found the perfect lama, it's because you need more merit, right? So this is how this situation works. And so we can see King Trisong Dutsen, even though he was an emanation of Manjushri and already, an enlightened being, we need to we can rely on his example. He's demonstrating the example of what we should do is we should set up the conditions for the lama. And this is like if we ever host a lama or around them, we should try to treat them in the same way that Trisong Dutsen treated Guru Rinpoche. This is a kind of method for bringing about this 5 perfections, right? You have to have this kind of attitude. How will you act if Guru Rinpoche, the Buddha, is in person in front of you? Try to hold that feeling. How would you listen when they speak? How would you act when they walk? Try to hold the gravity of that situation. And the more you can do that, the more blessings will come through. In the successive occurrence of kings, it is universally known that Tori Nyenshel, an emanation of the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, instigated the sacred Dharma. Songtsen Gampo, Avalokiteshvar in person, established its tradition. And finally, the great Dharma ruler, King Trisong Dutsen, emanation body of the noble Manjushri, made it spread and flourish. In order that the sacred Dharma flourish, this later Dharma king invited from the noble land of India 108 great panditas, such as the great scholar Shantarakshita, Vimalamitra, who possessed the Vajra body, and in particular Padmakara, the great Vidyadhara of immortality. He let the subjects with devotion be ordained and learn translation. He erected temples, established the Sangha. He founded the tradition for translating, expounding, and practicing the sacred Dharma. Thus, his deeds initially spreading the Buddha's teachings will never disappear, not even at the end of existence. And the signature and fame of this demonstrate the exaltedness of the patron of the teachings. And this is also things we can, so we don't have the merit of a king. We don't have the capacity to actually set up these kind of vast activities, but we can participate. Every little donation you make to translation committees, to different rituals being held at monasteries, inviting lamas, requesting teachings, all of these things are small acts of reenacting this act that Trisong Ditsun did. So the retinue is the 25 disciples of Guru Rinpoche and all these panditas and all the people in Samye Monastery that were situated when Guru Rinpoche gave the first teachings. So that's the perfect retinue. So when we're listening to a teaching, we should imagine that we are the 25 disciples of Guru Rinpoche, all listening intently to Guru Rinpoche teach, and having that kind of feeling and attitude. And then that really like will help you to be a positive container for receiving the teachings and the blessings. The place. Lama Rinpoche Ningpo root text says, he came into the snowy land, the realm of the noble, compassionate one. As entrusted to him by the matchless king of the Shakyas, the great noble, compassionate one accepted this snowy land of Tibet as his sphere of influence. That's Chenrezig. He also blessed the place, the outer vessel of the material things, to be inseparable from Mount Patala, endowed with the four liberations, and manifested countless self-appearing proofs of that. He planted the first seed of its inhabitants, of human beings, and emanated an uninterrupted stream of various displays of incarnation, such as kings, ministers, householders, and learned and accomplished and realized spiritual teachers to influence whoever needed them. Thus he bestowed his blessings so that even children barely able to talk could effortlessly utter the sounds of his 6 syllables. Manifesting out of this noble one's compassion, Guru Rinpoche also appeared as a single protector of the beings of Tibet. And so I think that there's nothing wrong with viewing the United States and Canada and the West in general as being consecrated and blessed by Guru Rinpoche, because we certainly are blessed, right? As the Chinese invasion happened and everything, all these teachers came here and established centers all over the countries, South America, all of North America. And so this place was really established under, the many Nyingma centers that are in existence, established Guru Rinpoche here. So we can have that kind of understanding and vision that in the same way that Chenrezig blessed Tibet and made it into the sacred mandala, we can see that Turtle Island has been blessed and set up in the same way by Guru Rinpoche. And that kind of view and relationship towards your land that you are inhabiting can be very helpful. So not only when you're in teachings, but in general, to try to imagine that you're in the mandala of Guru Rinpoche's Pure Land continuously, trying to hold that vision. The mountain near you, you can see as Mount Meru or Mount Patala, the center, Mount Meru, these different sacred mountains in the tradition. You can see the different schools and hospitals and police stations as different temples to the protectors and to the medicine Buddha and to, Jambala as the banks. And, you can start to have more pure vision about your circumstance and the United States or the Canada or South America as a whole. So having this relationship to the land, I think, is a really important way to approach pure vision. And this, of course, doesn't mean that you need to pretend things that aren't happening on an ordinary level aren't happening, but it's going to serve you a lot more to abide in this view as much as possible, rather than having this more ordinary point of view. So the place, his blessings were so pervasive that even the children could say the mantras. The Buddha prophesied the teachings would spread further and further north, and fulfill its movement. So that's as it moved into Tibet, and the land is filled with all kinds of appearances of blessings. And so we can see, the native tribes having set up many of these sacred areas, preparing the land. And so this kind of vision and view we can hold is that preparation was happening through the blessings of Guru Rinpoche already. And then when the teachings actually came here, the conditions were actually ripe for that situation. And now, all of you have seen miraculous situations and things have happened that demonstrate the power of the blessings already being established in this land. And so that's the kind of view we can have. So this is the kind of thing we can the news and things like that, what they do is they open gateways to other views, right? You take on the view of the presenter of the information. So if you listen to a podcast or read a newspaper, whatever, whoever wrote it or created it, you're entering their view. So we should be careful about whose view we enter and how often. This sort of thing has a big, profound effect on our mind streams. So instead, we can, as much as possible, really view our land and the people in it with the more kind of sacred view because we have the sufficient merit to do that. Right. The fact we even know about these teachings, our experience of the West is very different than other people's experience of the West. Right. We have these teachings, blessings, teachers, access to the Dharma, all of these things that your average person does not have. This is because we have a precious human birth in this context. So for us, this place is sacred. That doesn't mean that there's not other lower realms coexisting. There always are, right? The lower realms are always coexisting within the pure perception. It's not, they don't exist at different places. They're all the same place. It's the perception that's different. So we want to kick ourselves up into a higher perception. We want to abide in a higher perception. You're not doing yourself any favors by indulging over and over again in lower views. It just doesn't serve us. When you see suffering, you should try and help. But we can still maintain a pure view about this place. So as we do, especially, and so when we want to do this most concentratedly is when we are in any kind of Dharma situation, we really want to take some time to establish these five perfections. So imagine wherever you are, whatever center you're at, or if you're on Zoom, then your house, or wherever you're watching it from, to feel you're in Guru Rinpoche's mansion, to feel that you're at the center of his Pure Land, that you're in Samye Monastery, that Guru Rinpoche is giving teachings, and that you're with the 25 disciples, all these great masters, right? His retinue, which are actually emanations of Guru Rinpoche. That's the amazing thing. So we're emanations of Guru Rinpoche receiving teachings from Guru Rinpoche, right? There's not this, even though there's a kind of hierarchy in orientation, it's almost like a play, a magical play, or a kind of acting out because of our lack of clarity and merit. The fourth, let's see, did I finish that? So according to the Victorious One's prophecy that the teachings would spread further. Yeah, we finished that. Okay, so the teaching. The Lamer Myeshe Ningpo root text says, he placed all the vicious elemental forces under the majestic seal, his command, erected the triple-style, unchanging, spontaneously perfected temple, a palace with shrines and strewn with flowers of consecration. He established the great tradition of expounding and practicing the entire doctrine of the Dharma, and in particular, he turned an infinite variety of the Dharma wheels of the Tantra statements and instructions of the Vajrayana. So now, as Guru Rinpoche's emanations and emissaries, as whatever yidam you identify with, then when we're putting out naga discs or stupas or doing smoke offerings, we should see ourselves as being representatives of Guru Rinpoche, helping harmonize and balance the elemental forces in this land, right? So we're doing sacred work to bless and transform the land itself, and that actually starts to permeate down into the lower realms, right? The lower fields of perception can be affected by this blessing force that we're kind of drawing down through our pure vision and through our consecration acts. So that's why whenever we do tantric practice, we don't do tantric practice like me, Damien, the ordinary person from this, town who's doing this practice. We don't do that. We imagine we're the yidam, and then we do the practice as the yidam. That way we actually have power. The elementals and the different spirits won't listen to you if you're just an ordinary ego, right? But if you take on this divine pride, then you can start, they'll be like, oh, it's Guru Rinpoche telling us what to do, and they'll do it. Or Tara's telling us what to do, and they'll do it. And there's more power and effectiveness in whatever you're doing. So try to take a moment to connect to that, I'm Tara, and then rest in the nature mind, and then do whatever act you're doing so that you're bringing through this blessing action and participating in the activities of Guru Rinpoche on this land. He visited personally all the sacred places, snow mountains, caves, lakes, blessed them, and concealed innumerable named and unnamed treasures. Thus, his immeasurable kindness permeates all of Tibet, both central and surrounding lands, and will remain right up to the last day of the future age. So you can really make this a part of your life, I think, in the tantric view, to try to visit the special places. You know, all the waterfalls, caves, mountains, hills, streams, things that seem like they have a little magic, right? Whatever place like that, and go to those places and bless them and make offerings to the local deities and help to harmonize, because a lot of harm has been done in these places for people who don't have pure vision. So we want to uplift and harmonize those situations by doing smoke offerings and using naga discs, etc. So we can try to be little emissaries for our area and just go to the places. And if you don't have the ability to go to the places, then just visualize the places and do it in your backyard, and try to connect to them and, bless them. Like, one of my teachers went to Mount Rainier and we did chud for Mount Rainier, and it was like extremely powerful, and you could really feel the deity of Mount Rainier. Probably hasn't been acknowledged like that very much in the last 100 years, right? So yes, that's right. Work those naga discs. And so it's really like, you think since the Native American population was suppressed and wiped out, that these acts haven't been done. These beings haven't been served. So part of the negativity we experience in this country are due to those elementals who are now kind of out of control because they're not being respected, because there's the negative energy of the minds of beings within this area. So we are going to counter some of that by bringing in the blessings of the Dharma. It is inconceivable how the Buddhas act through mastering the magical display of the fourfold conversion by means of the never-ending adornments of wheels of body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities. All these deeds are the exclusive domain of the Tathagatas and are nothing but the wheel of Dharma to benefit others. I shall now explain, as is generally agreed, how these deeds manifested to influence beings in this land of Tibet. When the great master Nirmanakaya arrived in the land of the snows, his first act of opening the door of Dharma was to tame the uncontrollable elemental forces native to Tibet. All the vicious spirits from Nari to Dokam, by placing them under the powerful and majestic seal of his command, by making obstacles for the Dharma and for virtuous actions they have had until then made it impossible for even Shantarakshita, a great bodhisattva dwelling on the bhumis, to establish the law of Dharma. Padmasambhava appointed the vicious spirits henceforth as guardians of the sacred Dharma and of its practitioners, and placed them under oath as servants, and made them never transgress that oath. And so, depending on your capacity, you can do this to a certain degree, and if you can't do it, you can at least make offerings to the protectors and they can do it. And obviously doing any Guru Rinpoche practice or Tara practice, whatever, that can also do these activities. So this is the bodhisattva activities of the tantric vehicle, right? More, you don't have to wait for like money to be available to you to give to homeless people. Like, you should do that too, but we only have like so much resources. But we can offer lots of smoke offerings and visualized offerings and lots of mantras and special songs and all of these things that we can do. We can really benefit beings, both seen and unseen, through these activities. Taking as a model Vikramashila, the source of teachings and practice, he erected in accordance with the king's aspirations a great and miraculous center for the Dharma shaped as Mount Sumeru, the four-continent sun and the moon with the surrounding iron wall. Designed in three styles of architecture, the lower style is Tibetan, the middle Chinese, and the top story Indian. This triple-storied central structure of glorious Samye, the unchanging and spontaneously perfected temple, was unequaled on the surface of the earth and below the sun. Outwardly, it was a celestial palace, and inside it contained wondrous shrines with representations of body, speech, and mind, and transcended the imagination. So anytime we enter into the field of a Dharma teacher, this is what we are trying to imagine we are in. We are in this temple of Samye, which is a symbol for Mount Patala. Padmasambhava personally strewing the flowers of consecration, accompanied by the wondrous great magical display of wisdom beings visibly dissolving into the shrine objects, by establishing Samye as an object of faith for the whole world, including the gods, and by preserving and sustaining the precious teachings of the Buddha. In Tibet, up until the present time, he had bestowed the kindness of the never-waning auspiciousness upon the world and its beings. The precious teachings of the Buddha consist of the statement and realization. The Dharma of statement is included in the three collections, the Tripitaka. And the aspect of realization is comprised of the three trainings. At first, Padmasambhava clearly foretold the Lotsawas were to translate the Dharma of statement into the Tibetan language and allowed for them to learn the topics of knowledge. Gradually bringing Lotsawas and Panditas together, he created the chief circumstance for translating into Tibetan all of the sacred Dharma prevalent in the noble land. He first instigated the river of the great tradition of expounding and studying the entire statements and realization of sutra and mantra, as well as of applying, meditating upon, and practicing the trainings. Upon the fortunate beings and disciples, he bestowed the most sublime teaching, all of the ripening and liberating aspects of the Vajra vehicles of secret mantra, and that through numerous special qualities are superior to the philosophical vehicles and give enlightenment within one lifetime. By turning an infinite variety of Dharma wheels of the tantras of the Maha, the statements of the Anu, and the instructions of the Ati, as well as all the profound meanings of the tantras, statements, and instructions that are successfully present in each of the three yogas, he illuminated the essence of the Buddha Dharma in a way that far exceeded even that of the noble land. So all of the different teachings, the reason that the Tantrayana is so much more extraordinary and different from the Sutrayana and the Hinayana is that in those you're trying to build on your karma to the point where your physical experience changes. You may have noticed that takes a very long time, right? Most of us have kind of the karma we had when we entered this life, and that leads to various kinds of bodily ailments, poverty, these situations that we experience. And even though we are maybe rapidly or very rapidly progressing along the path through Tantra and Dzogchen, we may not see the results on a physical level because changing physical karma is slow. So we are working more directly on the energetic view, tantric energetic level directly and bypassing this physical view. That's a lot of what we're doing, right? So through the power of visualization, you are becoming accustomed to the truth now rather than waiting to get there through the accumulation of karma and purification over countless lifetimes to the point where you're born into a kind of Buddha field, right? Where you actually perceive that physically in your life, right? So we're trying to skip that, move very quickly by connecting directly to these energies, the five Buddha families, through empowerment and blessings of the Buddha's wisdom mind directly. So through empowerment and transmission, we are given a kind of key, and then through faith, we can start to shift and let go of this solid perception. It's not that solid perception disappears, we just don't take it seriously. We try to practice despite it and try to see through it and see it for what it is. For us, it seems very solid, but you can, through your perception and faith, start to see it as less and less solid and more made of light. And then that starts to refine the energy and will allow for some transformation on a karmic level. But if you ever feel frustrated, like, why isn't it changing? It's because that's really hard to do. To actually transform the elements, it really takes probably isolation and retreat to where that's where you see some of the cities and manifest because they've disconnected from the world sufficiently to actually bring in a Pure Land vision into the physical experience that they're inhabiting. But we're working against all the mind streams of everybody we're connected to, and we're so bound up in that field. That's why a bodhisattva orientation when it comes to your activity is much more beneficial. So really we want to just keep working and slugging away at a physical level at a bodhisattva orientation. On the outside, sutra. On the inside, Dzogchen, right? So we want to have the Dzogchen tantric view on the inside, trying to work through this. And this is why you can have levels of realization while your body mind still causes problems. This is why you can have teachers who aren't fully ripened, right? Because and this is why the really great teachers all harp on the bodhisattva vehicle so hard. My opinion is you need to transform your sem, your mind, your ordinary mind, into a bodhisattva before you can really establish yourself in Tantra and Dzogchen. Now, of course, you're not going to attain like necessarily the boomies, not like that, but you need to at least soften all the rough edges and make yourself into a generally kind and agreeable person. Because as you start to progress on your wisdom mind, you need to bring your body along with you a little bit. because you don't want to leave it behind with your old bullshit, right? Like some of that still hangs around, and you want to keep working on that and cleaning that and polishing that continuously because it causes harm, and that harm you're still going to have to experience the karma of. And you're definitely affecting the beings around you and the perception of the Dharma. So, this is why this kind of process is so needs to be done carefully. And that's why there's more room for kind of a radical tantra, a radical dzogchen, where you might have even wilder behavior in a context of like five yogis practicing in the middle of the mountains somewhere, right? You're not going to cause much trouble. We're so interconnected with sentient beings, so part of society that we really need to be so careful about our actions and really just never stop training in the six paramitas on an ordinary level, even though our mind, our view is as vast as the sky, right? So that's why that's so important. Does anybody have any questions before I keep moving or comments, thoughts, going once, going twice, moving forward? Okay. Through the tremendous miraculous display pervading an ocean of realms with a single bodily form, he personally visited, accompanied by the incarnated retinue of the king's subjects and companions, the major sacred places of Tibet, primarily the four grand snow mountains, the eight great caves, the four renowned great lakes, the five lands, the three valleys, the secret countries, and the major districts. See, all these blessed places in Tibet, we have them here too, but they need to be properly consecrated, and we need to have proper faith and vision for that to happen. Now, because Tibet has so much merit and had so many realized masters and had so many people pure vision, even ordinary bumpkins like us can go there and or even think about it or pray to it and get blessings because they even transformed the physical land some, right? But we want to work at doing this for our space. This is an offering and a bodhisattva activity that we can do to help sacralize Turtle Island. He visited all of the land of upper, lower, and middle districts of Tibet and Kham without omitting as much as an imprint of a horse hoof. By his miraculous power of transforming an instant into an eon, he blessed each of these major sites to make them inseparable from all the primordially perfect major sacred places by performing assembly sadhanas and turning the wheel of the Dharma for years and months at each place. Those who were his disciples at that time attained liberation simultaneously with realization, and those of lesser fortune were implanted with the seed by merely seeing his face. Considering with loving kindness the beings of future generations, he concealed countless profound treasures such as image treasures, dharma treasures, wealth treasures, substance treasures, and so forth. These included named termas with description lists of predictions, the persons who would reveal them, as well as unnamed termas that were intended for any fortunate person. By filling the land in this way with teachings, precious articles, and sacraments, he declared that he will accomplish the welfare of all worthy beings by means of the Dharma treasures until the arrival of the victorious Maitreya, even though the teachings of Shakyamuni will disappear, and that he will thus remain to the last days of the final future age. Thus, the fact that he pervades all the central and surrounding lands of Tibet, Kham, and with his immeasurable kindness is experienced as evident by all the wise people of the present times. This demonstrates the exaltedness of the Dharma deeds. So that was the teaching. So his first act was subduing the vicious spirits who had made it impossible to bring the Dharma. He built Samye Monastery. He turned the wheel of Dharma. He taught the tantras of Maha, Anu, and Ati, and within each yoga, successive tantra statements and instructions. So he illuminated the land, blessed the land, concealed terma, blessed the sites, thoroughly saturated all of that place with blessings. He will accomplish the welfare of all worthy beings by means of Terama treasures until the arrival of the victorious Maitreya. That's the second Buddha, even though Guru Rinpoche is the second Buddha, the future Buddha is sometimes called. Even though the teachings of Shakyamuni will disappear and thus will remain to the last days of the final future age. Toggle Origin said when Padmasambhava conserved the termas, he was not leaving a library. He was planting living seeds in the ground of that land and in the mind streams of future disciples. A terma teaching does not arise because someone digs it up. It arises because a mind stream ripens to the point of meeting its own prior aspiration. The revealer was already present at the original concealment. This is what makes the treasure tradition miraculous. So think about that for a moment. So the terma revealers are always tolkus of the 25 disciples of Guru Rinpoche, right? So through time and space, they pull out the teaching that was planted there, but it's as though no time had passed, right? Because the ripening of conditions, time is an illusion, and through they're able to reach through time to pull this out planted there for appropriate times. Because like for Guru Rinpoche, it's like an accordion, like smashed down, and he can put the things in there, and then we stretch it out with our limited minds. So it appears to be planted all through time, apparently, but it was all planted in the now. And so when we come to the last fifth perfection, he only has one sentence. The time when the great doors of these inconceivable, wondrous, miraculous displays took place is indirectly demonstrated. Why do you think that the time section is so short? What time is the sacred time? Anybody know? Now. That's right. There's only one time. There's just now. So that is why the time is the what we should focus on is let go of the past, let go of the future, and don't grasp at the present. This moment right now, before any sense of time, is the perfect time. So those are the five perfections. Before I move forward, does anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts, or about the five perfections?
I do.
Yes.
So I have two questions.
Mhm.
It's just that I don't know what these things are. What does it mean? What does it mean, this the sealing of the knowledge? What is the seal? What does that mean?
Well, it's just when he hides the terma, it like is sealed through, he has protectors guard it, and it has like conditions that protect it, right? So it has to be the right terton, has to be the right time and conditions. Like if you read the stories of the tertons,
Hmm.
um, they have to have the right consort. Everything has to be perfect. And many of them, like the 16th Karmapa was said like, oh, I was going to retrieve a terma there, but I wasn't able to. Like things shift, like because of the karma of beings. So the seal is this like perfect karmic condition to unlock that potential, right? As his disciples. Ultimately, like everything else, it's our merit, right? So through our merit and purification, then the Teretans who are alive, or Tolkus right now, will be able to do their activity. But they're limited in their ability to do that activity if we don't have sufficient faith and merit, right? That opens us up to the perception. Like I was saying, the reason cities don't happen is because the field of faith and merit is low. So we just don't have that kind of flexibility. Scientific materialist point of view is so pervasive and infects us and infects others so much that it really limits the possibility. So that's the seal on it, and that seal is removed when the conditions come together perfectly. And so that's why we really should supplicate the Teretans that are living like Adzam Palo Rinpoche, and really make sure we have pure perception toward them, follow their instructions. If we see them as ordinary, then they like takes away their capacity to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then, so the seal just, it isn't like he took a lock and key and stuck close. It's just the conditions in themselves are the seal, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so like for a mind terma, that's pretty clear, right? Like it just won't come to you. But for an earth terma, like there's all kinds of situations where people even get killed trying to retrieve them, or
Mm.
like land spirits cause landslides, or all these things can happen around that situation if it's not perfect.
Mm. And one other question, which I just don't know, but I'm sure everybody else probably knows. I don't know what it is, how you do a smoke offering.
Oh, have you
What
ever
do-
done Riwa Songshu?
No, I
Okay.
don't know what it is.
Do you want me to give you one? I can give you one very easily, a short one. So it's you buy a special kind of incense called Riwa Sangchu incense. Sometimes it's in powder, sometimes it's in like a stick. But basically, it's just no different than, but you take it outside and you burn the incense and you say this prayer that's specifically designed to offer to the four classes, right? So to the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Gurus, Yidams, Dakinis, the protectors, to sentient beings, and to karmic creditors. Yeah, Potala Gate has lots of different options to get the incense. I use one called Nado, Nado, Pojang. It's Poiszhang, I think. But they have a morning blend, so there's a morning and evening. There's Song and Sir. Song offering is Riwo Sangchu. That's the morning offering done mostly to the upper beings, right? The law, the devas, and that sort of thing. And then the Sur is the evening one done during near sunset, and that's more for the hungry ghosts and the bardo beings, right? And so these are the two practices. So Riwo Sangchu is very safe and a very powerful practice. I do it every single day. I can give you a lung if you want.
I would
For
love to do it.
Yeah, I can give you a very, very brief, easy to do one. I literally just put the incense out, say the prayer, and that's it. And I just make it part of my morning altar ritual. And so what it does is it's offerings to not only the Buddhas and all those, but also to all the land spirits and all the elementals in your area. And it's specifically designed with like milk and the sweets and scents that are non-offensive to the upper beings, right? It's very clean and upper. The particular kind of formula, and it increases your own lungta, which is your own like spiritual energy. If you're ever having that feeling like where things are just starting to drag and you feel depressed and nothing's moving, and
That.
this practice is like the practice, especially if you do like elaborate ones and you do that for a few days. Almost every single time I have it move the energy because it's tons of merit, right? And it's purifying your environment and sacralizing your environment. And so sometimes we pick up, what's called drip, right? Like bad juju from our environment and people. So this clears that. So you can also like walk through the smoke and get like the purification, the kind of like sage function also.
Mhm.
So it's very earthy, native style. It was actually it based on early Bun traditions they had for making these offerings to the land spirits, and then Guru Rinpoche transformed it into this Dharma practice. And it was very, very advised during COVID to prevent these sorts of things where there's contagious diseases which are brought on often by mamos, which are a class of spirits when they get irritated from pollutants and
Mhm.
environmental degradation and this sort of thing. Anytime there's like a very rapidly arising contagious disease, it's said to be them. So the Tibetans understood COVID to be a mamo upheaval. So Riwo Songchu was heavily recommended as a way to do this, to deal with these situations. So it's incredibly powerful. One of my absolute favorite practices. So let me find the one to give you. Okay, if you don't mind requesting, I will offer you guys this lung.
Yeah, would you please give me the loom? I don't know, can't say the name of it, but
The brief song offering.
brief song offering.
Yes. Oh, with this smoke offering in great clouds like those of Samantabhadra, we sanctify the Guru Yidam deity, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We sanctify the Veers, Dakinis, Dharma protectors, and wealth deities. We sanctify the warrior spirits, Waramas, regional deities, and treasure keepers. We sanctify all the personal gods and powerful guardians. We sanctify the outer environment and its inhabitants into vast purity. And we offer a sky treasury of inexhaustible sensory delights. Let everything be auspicious so that hindrances are pacified and all our wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Ram yam kam om ma hung om ma hung om ma hung om ma hung om ma hung. Om vajrasava samaya manabalaya vajrasava tenoba tishududa mebawa zeraga mebawa zebaga mebawa hanarada mebawa zawazidi mebiya zawagama zida medzam jingara hung. Ha 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 ho bhagavan zavadadagata vajramami munza vajibama samaya sava ah. So let me get the link for this so I can share it with you. And so at the end of it, it just says recite Oma Hung. I always do the Ram Yam Kam first, just like any offering to purify the incense, and then the Oma Hung is to offer it. And then you can just chant that slowly or quickly, as many times as you want, imagining infinite offerings going to um, all sentient beings, going to all the upper beings, all the lower beings, etc. And as you can hear, it's very brief. And then there's one verse in there where it says, personal gods and powerful guardians. There's a note there from Mipam that any deity can put in there. So you can put your personal yidam in there, and make sure you're making an offering, or also personal protectors. And there's also a longer one that we have that Joe has given us. And so if you're interested in doing a more elaborate one, I recommend you request that from Joe.
I mean, I think Joe was given a a song offering by one of his teachers in Tibet, and he shared it with the Sangha. I can't remember.
Yeah, he shared the Sur offering from Traja Rinpoche,
Raja
and
Rinpoche,
then
right?
he shared Dudjom Rinpoche's Riwo Sangchu, the full long one, that also has a whole bunch of other stuff added into it. And then there's also the Chokjer Lingpa one. So there's a few. But the big one that he has is really nice to do if you're ever having trouble or you really want to spend some time with this practice. It's based on Dudjom Rinpoche's, which is sort of the standard these days. Most people use his. But there's the link there in the chat. And so you're all welcome to practice that. And yeah, so then just on Patala or any Dharma website, we'll have Riwo Sangchu incense. And let me just write that for you in the chat. It means mountain smoke offering, is what Riwo Sangchu means. And so there's some that are called that, and then some that are just called a song offering, which is just the brief version. Song is smoke.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and there's really no reason why you can't just use whatever incense you're using and put it outside. I doubt that your incense has anything in it offensive, but it's nice to get the proper thing. This next section is pretty short, so I'm going to just go ahead and move through if unless anybody has any questions. Okay. The circumstances. The circumstances for beginning the teaching. This has two parts. Establishing the basis for beginning the teaching and the actual beginning of the teaching. Establishing the basis for the beginning of the teaching. Lamar Mishiningpo root text says, at that time and occasion in which the retinue is indivisible from the teacher, the actual beginning of the teaching, Lamar Mishe Ningpo root text says, because of these marvelous and inconceivable deeds, the stages of the path condensed into the essence, Samaya. Fearing that there would be too many words if at this point the general meaning were to be expounded on, and also the meaning of the words are easy to understand, I did not elaborate further. Okay, so at the beginning of every sutra, you always have like "Thus I heard," right? Usually that said the somebody's recalling a teaching from the Buddha, and that's an indication that it's from the sutras generally. That when you hear "Thus I heard," so when it's a tantra, in this case, it's at this time and occasion when the retinue is indivisible from the teacher, right? So it's a very different orientation, telling you about the sort of context in which this arises. And so this again is pointing to those five perfections. And even Dzogchen tantras have even a different kind of or beginning, and I can't remember the Tibetan word for this. Maybe one of you guys know. But there's actually a word for this introductory sentence that sets up how this teaching was given. And so, basically that's it. At the time and occasion with the five perfection, the retinue is indivisible from the teacher, and these marvelous inconceivable deeds, the stages of the path are condensed into the essence. So it's pointing to the fact that this is Dzogchen and Tantric level teachings, and that in this pure situation, that's how this teaching was transmitted. So I think that's good for today. Does anybody have anything else questions, thoughts?
Thank you, Damien.
Hmm. Yeah, I really recommend a daily smoke offering in our times. I think it's really helpful and important practice, and really connects us. Like as I said, all of these beings haven't been fed, as it were, right, for so long, and they're still not. And so every time by doing that every day, you're really huge act of generosity and benefit for sentient beings. It's super powerful and powerful for yourself. There's whole Tibetan medicine sections about using this to correct energetic problems in yourself. If you're interested in that, Khandro Kunzang, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she has teachings on this. I think they're free on YouTube. Um, she's amazing. She's probably the best Western teacher of tantric ritual around. So easy to understand, um, so helpful. And she has lots of classes and teaches Rushen and all kinds of things. I highly recommend anything she does. Western woman who is a consort to a High Lama, trained one-on-one, all of these things personally, and she's so down to earth and knowledgeable, and just knows all the technical stuff that no one knows. Only the Tibetans know, really. She knows all of that stuff. So getting those teachings, if you're into that kind of activity, she's amazing. Khandro Kunzang. I will put it in the chat.
And Lama, well, they know him affectionately as Lama Freddy. He's a student of Tarshan Rinpoche, and he's
Yeah.
very, very knowledgeable in those rituals as well.
Yeah, that's true. And she has all her teachings like on her website. You can buy them, just a whole bunch of videos, not very expensive or anything. But she's awesome. One of my Okay. Anything else before we close?
Hey, can you do a smoke offering ceremony as part of this group sometime?
Sure. Sure.
A
I
lot
mean,
of people
literally all I do is light the incense and put it outside and then say the prayer. That's it.
yeah. I mean, just to, give people a feel of what the experience is like. It helps to do it in a group too, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, and what would be even better is if you could ask Joe to do some Saturday morning or something where we do the big one,
Oh
um,
yeah.
as a group. That's what we should do. And then we could all
Oh
like
yeah.
set up and be in our own respective places, on our phone or whatever, and then do the offering together. I think that would be more powerful. And Joe is probably more qualified for that.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. You're pretty qualified.
Damien, Damien, thank you. You really helped to remind us that the sacred is always here with us around.
Yeah, we're so blessed. It's so amazing. It's like incredible that we have this. Every time I read this book, I'm like, how did we even, like the fortune we have to even encounter these words, much less to care what they say, is incredible. So we really can't waste our time. It's amazing. By this merit may all attain omniscience, having defeated the enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara may I free all beings. Thank you all for being here. Love you. Have a
Thank you,
great
Damien.
night. Please feel free to message me if you ever have any thoughts, questions, ideas. Always happy.
Thank you,
All
Damien.
right. Good
Thank
night,
Night,
you.
everybody.
night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Praying for Martha.
Thank you.